Welcome guys to the coding question tutorial by your host and host Mr. Suraj Pawar sir from Leadsoft IT Solution. Well, in the last question we guys have seen how to solve that letter number question which is asked in Accenture. Well, again in this question, like the question titled as add every nth element, this question is also asked in July of Accenture Drive. What this questions exactly says, again it came in somewhat problem description. Some notes are there. These notes we can convert them as a constraint to the problem statement. Again, we have some sample inputs and outputs, and with respect to that we have explanations and one more sample input output we will have. So again, we have two sample test cases. On the both of sample test cases we guys are going to write with the code. So let us check with this. The problem title having the name of add every nth elements. So what this problem statement says, we have to create a function. Again, one more function is going to design, which means in a real time this problem statement does not include inputting and outputting to write from the student. Inputting and outputting must be written in a coding editor, and there is a function called sum successive elements with two arguments of array and n. So this empty function is given and you guys needs to implement that function. Okay, what this function exactly describes for, as they mention here, you guys can see, let me zoom out one more time. So the function accept an array of the length len and an integer n as a argument. So that means the length describes by the n value, and the array, okay, in terms of Python that must be a list. So the list name where all this data has been stored is stored by the name of arr, and you are required to calculate the sum of, what we have to calculate, sum of every successive nth element in that array, and we have to returns the value also. So what we guys needs to do is, I have to find out the sum of every successive nth element, and we have to return that sum from the function. So which means this corresponding method of sum successive elements returns the value, and that value must be in an integer format. Okay, again, some assumptions they have given in a program as n must be greater than 0, which means whatever the array we will have that deals with some of the elements over to there, means the number of elements in the array must be greater than 0. And again, if the array is null, or in Python it is none, then we have to return what? -1. Well, these nodes are really very important when it is coming to hidden test cases. These nodes are really very important. So I will suggest everyone, those who are reading the questions here, you should read that note properly so that you can able to get an idea how to design with that code. And again, if the n is greater than the length of array, it must be written the 0. If the n is greater than length of array, which means whatever the length of array and the n given to the question is not appropriate in a format, so I have to return the 0 over to there. So the first thing that I'm going to do in my code, I'm going to write the condition for it, because it is going to pass my hidden test cases. And for this one also, if you not written well in logic, it is going to be include, and we are going to get them solved right there. Now let us check how we guys can able to calculate the sum of every successive nth element in the array. To calculate the sum of every successive nth element, so here some sample test cases is given. Let me just zoom out one more time. So let us check with that. So the array is given here with the length of what? 8. So these are the 8 elements: 10, 12, 16, 1, 5, 6, 3, 21. So these are the elements we will have. So the n here mentioned given as 3. So I have to calculate, okay, in explanation also you guys can check, third successive element in the arrays are, okay, third successive elements means after starting from left to right, what must be the elements those are occur at the position of third, that elements we have to add. So you guys can see, okay, if I'm going to write the position, so this is first position, this is second, this is third, this is fourth, this is fifth, this is six, seven, eight. So the third successive positions means starting by this, so we are going to receive 16 first, no doubt. Okay, starting by this, again third position we are going to receive as a 6, and after this there are no any third successive positions occurred. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add 16 plus 6, and that returns my output as a 22. And this is how, by this logic, I'm going to solve this question. Well, how I'm going to solve these questions right there? To solve these questions, what I'm going to do, I'm going to first create a skeleton. Let us work on a skeleton right there. So to create a skeleton in Python, first I'm going to open the editor. I guess in last video tutorial we guys have seen the lettered number sum. So that one also I'm going to change it here. So this is the code from the last. So what I need to do, first I'm going to write the inputting all. Okay, in the inputs, first I have to input the length of array, then the list elements, and then the value of n. So 3 lines of inputs are there. So that I'm going to design right there. Okay, we will write the function later. First I am going to input the length. Let us say length equals to, or I'm going to make them return into the length 1. Okay, length 1, because len is a inbuilt function, so I've just turned to the length 1, which is integer of input. Okay, then I have to read all integers value of array. I'm going to store it to the array, and that must be the list. So the list of map of that integer comma input with split. Well, if you guys are not aware of what kind of codes here I have written, I will suggest you to check our Python tutorial from the YouTube playlist, and there itself you can see the content of list, how to input the list, the input with the split attribute. You will get the complete idea what is this exactly mean by. Well, I have to read the value of n also. N is integer of input, and then I have to pass it to the function where that function is going to returns the value. So which functions I need to create? Some successive elements. So here I am going to create that function def. Okay, some successive elements, and those are having the attributes of array and the value of n, where the n defines the successive position. All right, so we will write that code later. So I have to call this function here. So that function is returns the value. So I'm going to say result equals to some successive elements, and we will pass this array and the value of n, and then we will print that results right there. Right, this is the skeleton that might be given in your coding editor. So you just wanted to update these respective part of function some successive element. So now most importantly, as we have seen the logic, every that n successive elements needs to be added. So that element is going to be added. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to create the result variable, and I'm going to set it to 0. Okay, now the most important question here, why we are setting to 0? As this is an addition task, and any number add to 0 doesn't change with the answer. So that is not going to change. So I have initialized to the 0. Now I have to iterate all the elements from the array. And there itself I wanted to check whether the position of this element, not a index, position of this element is available at the same successive position, that is in the format of n or not. And if it is available, then I am going to add it to the result. Now to make that done, I required the position of index. So instead of going for dynamic for loop, I will go with for I in the range of length of array. So if you don't know what is dynamic for loop and what is the range for loop, so again we will suggest you to check out our videos from the Python tutorial. Then you can came back, you will understood it very clearly. So let us write that code. So I have to start the loop from the 0 to length of this array, which means all elements are going to be accessed. Well, the successive position of that elements which returns in n is not defined by the index, it defined by the position. So the position of that element should be what? Index plus 1. Now to make that understand whether this is already divisible by the same respective pattern or not, I'm going to write a condition here is what? I plus 1, that is what the condition, or sorry, index, and we are going to convert them into the position. So if that I plus 1 modulus n is equals to 0, which means which is located at the corresponding positions of the array. One more thing I can able to write here as, okay, you guys can see if I'm trying to write a code from very beginning, so the first element it will automatically considered as its well position and it is going to be add, but we don't want to add the first element. For this, one more condition I'm going to write, and this I plus 1 must be greater than or equals to n. So if that one is also matches, is greater than or equal to n, and I plus 1, that is the position of the current element, is divided by n, is successfully divisible, well, I'm going to add that element into the results array of I. And using the for loop we can able to calculate all successive elements, and then I'm going to return the results from here. So this one logic we can able to applicable here right there in the code, and one more logic is also available that we guys are going to check after the successive implementation of this logic right there. So let us run the code. So we have these values, so I'm going to save this. So the value of length is 8, so first input must be 8 here. Then this is the array elements. Then what we will have is value of n is 3. So let us input. Okay, so we have the length as what? 8, and these are the elements. What are the elements here is, let me check, the 10. Okay, I guess first is 10, then 12, then 16, then 1, then 5, then 6, then 3, and then 21. Okay, let me cross check here also. 10, 12, 16, 1, 5, 6, 3, 21. All right, and the value of n is what? 3, and the results it's going to return what? 22. That is the right answer in the output also. Now the same inputs we are going to provide for the second sample test case where the length is what? 10. Okay, let us check with that. So I'm going to rerun the code. Okay, length is what? 10. The elements I guess are here 7, 8, 8. Let me just write it thoroughly. 7, 8, 8, 12, 4, 15, 71, 22, 23, 20, and 16. And the value of n, let us check what is the value of n is what? 4. So the value of n here is what? 4. And let us check the output is output 27. Well, that is also written correctly right there. So for this problem statement, all these test cases are going to be happen. Now comes to the second logic. Now you guys can see how we have written with this code. First we are checking at the position. If the position is successfully divisible by n, and if the I plus 1 is greater than or equals to n, then and then only we are returns the code. Well, one more thing is left here in the question. If the array is none, in that case it should be written what? -1, which means in the code I have to write one more if at the starting. So here at the starting I'm going to say if the length of the array is 0, or I can mention it in another way, is array equals to what? None. Both meanings are same. Well, in that case you should have to written what? -1. Okay, that must be the statement. If it is not, then it is going to follow to calculate the results and show that there in the output. Now one more approach also we guys are going to be followed right there. That is using some while loops also we can able to make that possible. How it will be? So the same code I am going to change. So here we are going to make it like I will set the I equals to 1 initially. So if my I is equals to 1, then what I'm going to do next is simply I will write the code as while I is less than the length of array. Okay, length of array plus 1 I have to write because we are dealing with the position, not with the index, or we can simply write instead of +1, I can simply mention I is less than or equals to length of array. So if the I is less than or equals to length of array, then what I'm going to do, again I have to form the sum. Now to form the sum, instead of taking it to the variable, I can stir it to the temporary list. See what is the logic here is, I have created a temporary list and there itself I am going to add the elements. Now how I am going to add the elements? Well, if that I equals to n, if the I matches to the n, then what I am going to do, simply instead of that we are writing I equals to n, instead of that I can say I modulus n equals to 0 and I is like greater than or equals to n. Well, in that case I'm going to say I will add that value of array. Now to add the value of array, I required the index, I don't require the position. I is equal to 1, that is position, and to convert them in index I am going to say I minus 1. So continuously I am going to add that value to the temp, and after this to return out, okay, what is there in a list, to print them I'm going to write as a temp. It is not required, but just for code analysis we are printing the list, but we have to return their sum, and to return the sum I can say return the sum of temp. This one logic also can be applicable. Now let us check the same logic to the first input given there, first input only. So let us run the code. So here we are, so we have the inputs right there available. So length is 8, the elements are 10, 12, 16, 1, 5, 6, 3, 21, and the n is what, 3. So again one more thing that is left here, the while loop is completely in an infinite loop because we haven't increment the value of I to the +1. So let me do that. So if that one is matches or not matches, I'm going to say I plus equals to 1. Now let me save it, let me rerun again. So here we are, first 8, then these are the elements and n is 3. So you guys can see only it has been taken 16 and 6, and then it is returning out with the output as a 22, likewise in the last. And the same approach you can follow for that 10 numbers also. So these are the numbers, and I guess the end right there is 4. Let me check. Yeah, and right there is 4, and the result is what, 27. And well, in that case it is going to consider 4 and 23 and it will add them together as a 27. So these kind of logics that you guys can able to utilize there in your coding approach, and you can able to solve. Okay, any one of you, those who are watching the video, you guys can convert the code either in Java or C or a C++ and put there in a comment section. I will cross confirm your code and provide there you in the comment part. If you fail any difficulty, okay, while converting or while understanding, please put me there in a comment section. We are happy to resolve your doubts with a free of cost. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Do share, do subscribe, and do like this video if you can see you are getting this like logic of sum of successive elements which is asked in last Accenture question.